Welcome, everybody. This is Jason, and this week we have another special guest presentation from Latmos, and this is going to be another Blender workshop. So, Latmos.
Thank you, Jason. Yes, this is part two to the Cutting Edges workshop, which we did last week. This part is the interesting stuff where we are going to go deep into everything that sort of relates to The Sims 2 and how we can use the program to do most of the editing inside the program, and then just export from there and have the mesh work in the game. Okay, so like last week, I'm just going to go over everything we're going to see in this workshop today. We are going to learn how to install the add-on that will allow us to do the import-export from the game. Then we're going to see how to edit the mesh using everything that we've learned from part one. And don't worry, there'll be some reminders of like some of the shortcuts and stuff like that. The third thing is going to be the morphs, then followed by the weights. So that is what we usually call the bonus assignments. So we're going to learn how to do that in Blender. And then just a final review, we're going to import into SIMP what we did, and then test it out in game. And just like last week, feel free to interrupt me at any time during the workshop. Questions are welcome whenever you have them. And also, just like last week, a small disclaimer, because this is going to be a method that is not necessarily all that well documented and is not going to use any of the usual tools people usually use in tutorials and guides. Just take what you need and leave the rest behind. You don't have to do it all inside Blender, but that's what we are going to see today. And there are going to be some comparisons with some of the tools or utilities that people have been using for a long time. And that is coming from a educational point of view. So how to install add-ons. First, I'm going to describe what is an add-on. I think it's quite self-explanatory, but nonetheless, things that you can add in Blender on top of what is already shipping with the program are add-ons, which are essentially like plugins, extensions, whatever you might call them, which contain like code, and they add like menus to the program, which you can click and do some stuff that isn't available by default in the program. You can also install themes in case you want some different color schemes and stuff like that. That's pretty simple. But the third thing is scripts. So scripts are a little bit, they're not really something that you add on Blender, but they're something that you can maybe like copy from somewhere. And since Blender is a Python made program, if I'm not mistaken, it has a Python API inside the program, which allows you to do stuff with that and then produce some results inside the game using the script that you just pasted. Last week, I showed you that there's a workspace inside Blender that lets you develop stuff, lets you programming. And that's where you would usually paste scripts. Now, a word of caution, never install something without judging its contents first. If you are unsure, you should definitely ask someone who knows more than you, or just sort of like go through the thread and try to see if people have been reacting to the thing that you are trying to install. Because Python is a low-level programming language, sorry if I'm not mistaken, so it can definitely do things on your computer. And if you don't know what that is, you can install something that is malicious. So just be cautious about that. And like I said, talk to fellow Blender users if you're unsure of something. With that being said, the link that is provided on the right of this slide, the extensions.blender.org, is the official repository of extensions that Blender has. So every add-on and theme that is in there is usually like trustworthy because it has been approved by like some like a group of developers that know Blender and know how to do stuff and with it, and they have approved these specific extensions. So yeah, you can go in there and see if there's something that you'd like to use. As for the Sims 2 GMDC add-ons, which is what we are going to need in order to do what we want to do today, there are 3 versions of them. So the first is for Blender 2.79, which is made by Smug Tomato. It's available in Mod The Sims. It's a workable add-on, but it's not feature complete, meaning usually people find some problems or issues that they encounter. They're not super sure where they are coming from. But it's workable, so you can still do a lot with it. And if you prefer the pre 2.8 type of versions for Blender, you can use that one. Then we have the newer GMDC add-on, which is made by DJ Alex88. It's also available in Mod The Sims. It's stable, but it's only working right now for versions from 2.8 until 4.0 because Blender changed something related to how it handled normals in version 4.1, which sort of broke the plugin in that aspect. So that version only works for those specific versions, but SimNopK has maintained this add-on, and it's currently released in his GitHub repository. And like I mentioned, so this is the same add-on, just SimNopK is the maintainer of it right now, not in a official capacity, but he's the one who has been updating it. And this version that he is maintaining is available, is compatible, sorry, for versions 4.1 and up. So today we're going to use, I am personally using version 5.1, and that works for that version in particular. In order to do that, we are going to first go into Blender. So you can open the program if it isn't already done. And the first thing we're going to do is go into the Edit menu, then Preferences, and here, this should be the first thing that you see whenever you open this menu. So by default, it's in the Add-ons tab. And so, like I mentioned in my slide, there's the official repository by Blender, which is available inside the program. But in order to be able to download stuff from this repo, you need to first give Blender the authorization that it can access the internet through the program. So I have already done it, so it's not going to ask me to do this. But the first time you try to install anything from here, it's going to ask you to give it the permissions necessary for it to do that. So just be sure that you are doing this. And then from here, you can install versions, but you can also like update them directly from here whenever there's a new version. So it's pretty cool that this is now something that Blender has. But since we are going to install something that is not inside the repository, the official repository, we're going to go back into add-ons, the add-ons tab, and we are going to, let me just bring the window, and we're going to go into this page, which I have linked in the thread of the workshop. And this is the latest release of the version which SimNopK has updated. Sorry. So you click here in Assets, you just click the little zip, the first one, the one that's called IO Sims 2 GMDC zip. You download that, And then when you go to your downloads folder, it should be here, right? So you keep it like that. You don't need to extract it. You don't need to extract it or anything. You just simply go to Blender. Yes. And then you click this little arrow here, you click install from disk, and then you navigate to your downloads folder, and it should be here. And then you just click install from disk, and that's going to install the add-on for you. Normally it should activate it instantly. If it's not done, you can just like scroll down the list and click the little check mark to activate it. And as you can see, it's called Import Export Themes to GMDC, Import Skeleton from Crest. It's by DJ Alex88. Cosmatevs, which is Simnop and so yeah, so you check this. And another one that I would like you to also activate, which is already inside here, because it ships with Blender, but it's not enabled by default. It's one that I talked about last week, is the LoopTools add-on. So you just check this one, and it should normally already be there. If it's not, you can install it from the get extensions. You just type LoopTools, and it should probably come up. Once that's done, be sure you download the sample project that I've provided also in the thread, which is called the download, sorry, how did I name it? Download the sample files. You click that and it should automatically download because it's a Dropbox file, which I've prepared so it automatically downloads when you click the link. And then you can extract the contents of that zip and put them somewhere that you are comfortable storing it. And then once that's done, you can just go back to Blender, go File, Open, and then open the Cutting Edges. It should be this one. Cutting Edges Workshop Sample Project.blend. You'll notice it's not a very big difference. That's because I have only prepared the most basic stuff for now. So yeah, you should have something like this when you open that file. If you get some notice about you not having the latest version of Blender, because I have saved the file in 5.1, just press whatever option it tells you to press to confirm that you want to open that file, even though it might break something. It will not break anything because there's nothing inside the file that is that complicated to break. Once you got normally the blend file, you'll notice that I've already put two collections inside of here, so we are sure we are sort of organized. But the idea is that first you click the little one that we are going to use as the dumping collection for the mesh that we're going to work on. And then we go File, Import, GMDC, and then we travel to the extracted folder and we select this one, which is the one with the extension 5GD. You might when you extract from CMP, you might notice that sometimes it ends with the CMP extension. It adds it on top of the one that was already there before. That doesn't change anything. It's still the same file format. It's just that CMP adds a suffix on the format. Don't know why, but that's what it does. So just select the one that's called 5GD, and that's going to import the mesh into Blender. Okay, so just a quick reminder, Shift-C to zoom onto the global stuff that's on the scene. You can also press like the dot on your numpad. And you might notice that I like to do like this. I'm using the number keys 1 and 9 in my numpad, and that's basically like puts the view in 2D. So 1 puts it in 2D mode on the front, but Sims 2 meshes are reversed, so you press 9 to flip the perspective, and now you're looking at the back from Blender's perspective, but you are looking at the front from Sims 2 perspective. I don't know why, but it's just some gimmick. So yeah. So now we
and
have
then the translation is ass backwards in the crest too in SimPE.
yes. It's actually it's a little bit weird because when you start working on other projects in Blender, you sort of like forget that you don't have to press 9, but yeah. But yeah, definitely the game also has this weird behavior inside the crest. So once that's done and you've imported the body mesh like I showed you, you should, when you click the body mesh, you should have materials in the list. So you can select the first one, which is called S2 with HM Night Out. And when you switch to material preview, ta-da, you have some textures. And which extracted? You want if you're talking about what is inside the extractor, which is the one you want, it's this one, the one that ends with 5GD. The AF body HM nightout dot 5GD. That's the one you want to import. No worries. Okay, so we have a body mesh with the texture. And now we're going to import like I mentioned, we're going to do a shoe swap. Just going back to this one. So we're going to import a mesh, which we've already done. We're going to use multi-edit mode, symmetrize 2 sides, handle vertex selections with mirror mode, and shoe swap as a bonus. So we're going to do all that in this part. So what you want to do right now is still having the selection of the current collection we have. You go into File, Import, GMDC, and this time you select this one, which is the Julie G bottom 3-2 thigh boots .5gd.simpe. So you select that, and that is going to bring the mesh that we want to shoe swap for.
Question there.
Mm-hmm.
So for Milkshape, when you import one 5GD over another, it's going to, if you don't tell it to not do that, otherwise it's going to duplicate the bonus assignments. How does Blender handle that?
Blender does not import a skeleton with the 5GD by default. That's something separate that we are going to do later. And when it comes to the data, it's not going to like overwrite anything. You can just import as many as you want, and it's still good. What we are going to do first is we're going to create a material, for the boots. So very quick thing. The reason why I didn't do it, like showed how to do it in the workshop, is because this one was a little bit more difficult to do because there's like 2 nodes. One is the texture of the clothing, and then the other one is the texture of the skin. So you have this, and then it needs to mix them, and it goes into the shader. So like you can maybe do that and discover that on your own, but the boots are pretty straightforward. So you can like hide this one here, and then click on the boots and create a new material, which you're going to call boots or whatever you want, doesn't really matter. Then, like I said last time, you want the IOR to be at 1 because we don't want shiny boots, at least when we are working. You can leave it if you don't care. And then for the base color, we're going to click the little yellow circle here next to the color swatch, and we're going to select image texture. So it is going to change whatever was in here. It's no longer a color swatch, and now you can open a texture, okay? But I have already imported the texture, so it should already be in there. So once you already have an image inside the file that is linked with the file, you can just click here on this little like thumbnail icon and select the lace up tight boots black. And there you go. The boots are now textured. All right, so shoe swapping. Select the three meshes together, okay? And you do that by pressing either Shift or Control. Doesn't really matter, but you select all of them. And then you switch to Edit mode. Okay, don't do this, like doing the drag and drop thing, because that might get you a selection which doesn't have an active element. This is something that I've talked about in the previous part. Blender has this thing where if you select multiple things, there is the latest one that was selected is considered the active current selected. So right here, you can see that the body is the one that is currently selected because it has a sort of orangey, light orange color, and it has like the lighter blue, while the others are also selected, but they have like a darker blue and darker orange. So if you do the drag and drop thing like this, you might have all three going orange, and that will prevent you from going into edit mode. So anyway, just select them with either control or select or shift, sorry, with either control or shift, and then switch to edit mode. So now we are in edit mode. We can go back to the solid shading view because it's going to be easier for us to see what we are doing. And now what we need to do is simply identify where it is that we want to make the new shoes match with the clothing part. So for that, we can like hide whatever isn't necessary at the moment. So this is the original mesh, the body one. And the boots, right now, I'm not going to worry too much about them because we are not even going to do anything on them. But the bottom is the part that I want. So the bottom parts, you can see, if we do this a couple of times, that the area where the old mesh and the new mesh, where the two meshes meet is right here, okay? But remember, this is not milk shape, so if you do what I just did, you're not going to select the vertices that are behind. So you need to switch to either wireframe mode, which already has the X-ray toggle on, or you can activate the toggle yourself doing this, and now you can select everything. You see that if I do a little turnover, that those vertices are all selected now. So okay, I did this, and I am sort of okay with the fact that that's where I want the cutout to happen. So what do I do from this point? I'm going to hide the bottom mesh, which is like the boots part, and I am going to select everything that was in here. Sorry, I'm going to do a box select, okay, so you press B, and I'm going to select all of the bottom parts. Now I'm going to press delete, and what I want to delete are the faces, not the vertices, because if I do vertices, that's also going to delete what I want to keep. I'm going to select faces, because that's just going to delete like the faces that you see here. These ones, these ones, these ones, but these ones are not selected, so they are not going to get deleted. So you delete the faces, and then I'm going to do the reverse on the bottom part. So here's my cutout. I'm going to switch to wireframe, select whatever is up top, and do the exact same thing. And that's just going to leave this little group of vertices. I'm going to just quickly exit out of edit mode. And as you can see, now we have completed sort of our shoe swap. So just to be clear, two things that we've done that are new compared to the previous parts. When you select multiple meshes while you're in object mode, you can switch to edit mode with all of them selected. This is something new from 2.8 that wasn't available before. And then the other stuff that we saw was how to like select the things like X-ray mode, which we covered, but just to identify whatever you needed to select, you could like toggle the show or hide of the mesh to identify where you needed to cut out. And like I said, be very aware of what you want to delete because that might be important. And of course, you can always undo and try again. Now we are going to select the boots and we are going to do a few things with the boots. So remember, you can select everything and then press the dot on your numpad, which is going to bring you to the currently selected parts. So the boots. What I want to do is nothing fancy, but I noticed when I was looking at the mesh that it doesn't necessarily sit very well on the floor level. You can see that if I zoom quite a lot, this part is the left shoe, while this one is the right shoe, and they are not at the same level. It's nothing major, but it's something that we can fix. And you also might notice that if I do something like this, if I activate the mirror symmetry mode, you notice that if I do this, it's not going to change whatever I have on this side. And this is because although they look very similar, the boots aren't symmetrical. So we're going to learn how to do that. So you select everything, and then you go Mesh, and click Snap to Symmetry. And you can see from here that Blender is giving you a little bit of an information. I'm going to do that again. You go Mesh, Snap to Symmetry, and it's telling you that it paired 502 vertices that were not previously paired. And you see, if you do a couple of like undos, that the boots have shifted ever so slightly. So now what I can do, since they are symmetricized, is I can select a point on one side and it automatically does the same thing on the other side. However, the boots have, I can show you this here. So if you go into this little viewport overlays and check the statistics, you can see that right now the poly count is like 1,500 triangles, right? And this is because when the boots were made, all the vertices were duplicated. So whenever you look at the boots from the outside to the inside, you would see the back faces. Does the symmetry thing only affect vertex location or also UV mapping? No, only vertex location. And this, also I should have mentioned that this option, the snap to symmetry, this is a approximation. So sometimes Blender might try to symmetrize something and it's going to do a very poor job at doing just that, because it's trying to do it based on the location of all the vertices. In this case, it worked because there is not enough vertices next to each other for it to fail that approximation, but it might be something that you get, especially if you have like double vertices. It might try to symmetrize ones that shouldn't be symmetrized. This is just so you know. There's this other option that's called symmetrize, which you would think is the thing that we would use in this case, but this is not going to try to pick up on what's already there. It's going to recreate a copy of what you have. For example, if I do like this and I like go symmetrize, it's going to flip it on the other side, which right now you can tell because the split is already in there, but just for the demonstration, I'm going to delete this and then select that and do symmetrize. And it should do this based on that. Yep. And you can see that it created another version of the shoe, right? It flipped whatever was in here to the other side. But the problem with this is what you just asked, is that doing this is great, but it's not flipping the UV mapping. And since we already had something in there, we don't need to create a new part of the mesh. What we want is just to try to symmetrize what's already there. So that's the reason why we chose this one instead. And that doesn't do anything on the UV maps. So yeah, as I was saying, there's quite a few triangles in here, and this is because the boots have faces that are front faces and back faces. So what are those? For those who don't know it, video games have an optimization technique which only renders the faces that are like looking at the camera, that are front faces. Whenever you're trying to look at a mesh from a back face perspective on a mesh, the game is not going to render the back face, because in most cases that would be useless. And so video games, since it's a pretty complicated process to run on any computer, it tries to go faster by not rendering those faces. So sometimes when people want to let the game render back faces, what they do is they duplicate whatever was already there, and then they flip the normals, which then flips the duration of the faces, letting you be able to just do what I'm doing right now and still see the inside of the shoe. Because otherwise you wouldn't see it. You would see just like emptiness. You would see like the ground in this case. Hope that
makes sense, but not for the entire boot.
Yeah, it might have been the creator, which I believe is Julie G, yeah, might have overdone it, but this might have also been something that was already there from the original, which this was made for Sims 3 and then converted. So yeah. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to just simplify the number of the poly count. And what we're going to do is simply select everything and then press M, and that's going to bring up the merge menu. Here, what you want to do is simply click the merge by distance, and that is going to sort of merge by distance. You can see that there are still some vertices which he wasn't able to go over, and that's because we symmetrized the mesh initially. I did that in this order just so I can show you that this merge by distance threshold, you can change it. So for example, if I remove one of the zeros, you can see that it removed 332 vertices. And if I redo that step of removing 1, 0, now it has removed 494 vertices. So remember, the context menu is the context window, is the window that is showing you options for the action that you just did. So initially, Blender, by default, when you do merge by distance, it handles it with a threshold of 100001, which is very, very close. And you can see, if I do this, it removes 264 vertices. But if we remove 2 zeros, now it has removed almost double of that. And the boot doesn't look weird or anything. And, well, it does look a little bit weird here, actually. So we want to make sure we are, here, we want to make sure that we are going to select the correct threshold, right? So this is the default, and what I advise you to do is just remove 1, and then try to play around with the numbers, see what makes sense. In any case, if at some point you feel like that step that's not going to go anywhere, you can also just undo, for example. Undo the symmetricize parts and merge first, right? So now, using the default Blender value of 0.0001, it removes 458 vertices, and that's just normal, because whenever the normals were flipped, it was done so they were like on top of each other. So this value now makes sense because the vertices are stacking one against the others. But now you notice that we are having some problems with the normals right here. If I remove my overlays and I do undo, then redo, you notice that the normals get a little bit messed up. And that's because Blender doesn't really do a very good job at merging the normals that are facing the correct orientation. So sometimes it merges a vertex that's leaning towards the back with one that is leaning towards the front, and that might get things a little bit weird. The other thing is that it also merges like the normals, which previously were working sort of okay, but it wasn't necessarily like the most realistic for a shoe, but they were looking quite okay. So what we're going to do is have the boots, okay? So not merging anything. And we are going to go into here, the data property panel, not concerning myself with whatever is in here. So we're going to unfold the geometry data panel, and we're going to just switch quickly to object mode, because it's better to switch to object mode for this. You clear the custom normal data, which is going to change something, but not a lot. You clear it, and then you add another one. Okay? So you clear the first, and you add another one that's going to reset the normals. And then you can go back to edit mode, reselect everything, merge by distance, which is still going to mess up the normals, but that's okay. And now in the context window, what we want to do is make sure you select sharp edges. What that's going to do is it's going to see where some of the parts that we are merging where they should be sharp, because most of the time when we merge stuff is because the vertices were doubled because there needed to be a sharp edge along that part. So now if we remove the overlays, you can see that it makes a lot more sense for a shoe to have a very sharp edge here and here and here, because, well, it's a shoe, so it has sharp edges.
It doesn't refubulate the normals when you do the merge operation.
Yeah, that's the idea. And now another something else that you might want to consider too is if you go into the viewport overlays and you select face orientation, you can see now if you go here, sorry, I need this to be on. You can see that this part here, like the inside of the boot, is now, I can just remove this, is now red. It's red because when we selected this one, the face orientation, it now is showing whatever is red is what we were calling the back faces before. So this is things that the game is not going to render if the camera is looking at them, but this is okay. If you have a version before 5.0 of Blender, you might have like all these ones are blue and all these ones are still red, which is actually something that I preferred, and I need to find the option that re-enables that. But yeah, in the newer versions, the front faces just look normal and the back faces look red when you press this option, face orientation. So this is a pretty handful option because it lets you know that these, well, first it lets you know that whenever Blender merge all those vertices, it actually did a good job this time. Sometimes it doesn't, but this time it did a good job. It only merged everything that was facing in the exact same direction, in the exact same orientation, sorry. And it also like correctly removed the ones that were leaning in the other direction. And this is good because now you see that we went from 1,500 to just 766, which is basically half of the original amount. But now you might be telling me, okay, but now I have another problem because whenever people are going to look at my boot from up here, with the body, it's better, they're going to see nothing here, which might be a little bit weird. So that's where we are going to sort of redo the same thing that was done before, but just a little bit more in a way that's not as extreme as it was before. So since I removed the symmetrize that I had done previously, I'm just going to redo that. Mesh snap to symmetry. So just like before, this has just symmetrized the shoes. So that's okay. And now if you look at it from the side profile, you'll notice that everything just matches. And now what we want to do is simply, you can you can switch to edges mode here. So you can press 2 on the numbers that are on top of the alphabet, not the ones that are on the numpad. You can press 1, 2, or 3 to switch between these 3 ones. You switch to the edges mode, and you can press Alt and do the same thing on the other side, and that's going to select the edge right here. And through this, what you want to do, go here, you can do Control plus, that's going to expand your selection, and then go back to the X-ray mode, remove these parts here because we don't need them, and just keep this part. Looking at the front, we're going to zoom in. And now what we want to do is do a Shift D. So you can see that we are duplicating whatever was already there, but we don't want to move where they were. We just want to scale them slightly inwards. So to do that, we actually need to change this thing here and select individual origins because there are two of them. So Shift D, then we press S, and now it's going to scale at the median point, but from each one instead of like doing an average of the two.
That's handy. So
Yeah,
it doesn't go further in on the x-axis than it needs to.
exactly.
That's handy.
And this works because they are not connected. So Blender is looking at them and they're going, okay, so these are not connected, so they are individual origins. So they have individual origins each, but it's still taking the median point of both of them, which should be around here, right? So yeah, you can like the amount that you scale by is not really important. Just do a little bit because we actually need them to be selectable, right? And before you deselect, you're going to press Alt N, and this is a special shortcut for like normal related stuff. And what you want to do is just flip. And now if we reactivate it's already activated. If we go back to the solid view, you can see that what we have just did was exactly what I was telling you previously, where we flipped the normal. So now these ones that we just duplicated are facing are front-facing faces. So yeah. And now we are going to, again, do a edge selection. Select the edge, press Alt, try to select this one here, which is the one that we are just duplicated. So that's going to do this, right? Not the one that is from the outer ring, because the shortcut wouldn't work anyway, because this only works because this is the final edge of the mesh. So you select that, and then you go press M and merge at center. So that does that. Okay, so it merges them all into a single vertex. And then you do the same thing on the other side, because this is not something that you can do in mirror mode. Okay, so now you have that. And what you want to do now is simply go back to vertex select mode. Then make sure you go to median point again. Here on the snapping part, you want to select vertex because we are going to snap to vertices. And then make sure you select this option, which is the mirror option on the x-axis. And we're going to select each vertex and vertex on the boots. I'm just going to quickly remove this so it's a little bit more enjoyable to see. And you're going to select the one that is inward, which we have duplicated, and you are going to like move it, and you can confirm that the one on the other side is moving with it. And so you're just going to press Control and move to the vertex where it should that it should meet. And you do that for the entire ring around the boot, like this, one after the other. I'm sure there's probably a very smart way to do this in Blender, but sometimes it's just better to go by hand. And yeah, that's all of them. You can confirm on the other side that they are also all inside they're all colliding into each other too. And now what you can do is select everything again, go merge, and again merge by distance with the sharp edges still selected, which is it shouldn't have deselected. And there you go. So now we have a 800 poly count boots that when you look from outside inwards will still show a bit of texture. And going back to the original thing that I talked about these boots, the fact that they are not sitting on the ground perfectly, what we can do is select this part of the boot, since there is quite a long edge, quite a long distance in between these points and these ones. I'm selecting all of this and then simply doing J to move, then Z for to constrain it to the upwards and downwards axes. And then one thing that I can do, sorry, is before I do that, I snap to the grid, and then I can go like zoom in a lot, then go J, Z, and press the control key again. So now it's snapping to the grid. You notice that something happened when I did that. It's sort of like tried to snap to whatever it felt like my mouse was. So it's okay. Just like make sure you just like go above. And like I said, Blender has this neat feature where when you reach the edge of the viewport, it continues on the on the opposite side of the viewport, and then just like try to put it somewhere along that. So here seems okay, like it's now floating a little bit, but it's okay. It doesn't need to be super precise. And this is mainly so I can show you all these techniques. So, okay. So we have a mesh with perfectly symmetrized boots that we have simplified by removing some of the unneeded faces. And yeah, we changed the original shoe for this one. So this part here, the bottom, which is currently called the bottom object, what you can do is select it, then select the body object using control. This one you need to select with control, because if you select with shift, it's also going to select the boots. So you select the bottom, then select body with control, which is going to make the body the active selection. And then just do Control J, and that's going to merge the bottom with the body. And since we actually don't need them to be two different materials, because the bottom mesh had a material that was empty, we can just remove this one, and it's going to automatically take whatever material was in there. Not that it matters, because the game doesn't really care about that. This type of data doesn't get exported. Are there any questions?
No, it's interesting because it's like I could get to the same place with Milkshape, but you're taking a completely different route.
Yeah.
I really like the being like that blew my mind, where you were able to like select both the parts you wanted to have as like the front faces on the inside of the boot, and then scale. Like in Milkshape, I would just scale, like mark one, scale it, mark the other, scale it. But like being able to do both at the same time is so nice.
Yeah, you can do a lot, and this is something that I haven't like mentioned too, but you can really be super precise with Blender in the same way that you are in Milkshape, because in Milkshape you would like select, mark whatever, how much you want to input, right? But in Blender you can also do that, because if you just like select and then press S and then press 2 on the numpad, it's going to multiply whatever value there was at the beginning by 2. And then you can also like come back to this part, then I don't know, like let's say I wanted to only scale on the x-axis, then you'd get something weird like this, but you get the idea. So in that regard, it's similar to what Milkshape has going on top of having like the the dragging. So morphs, shape keys. What the hell are those? So just so you have this information, because it can be a little bit, it can be important. You cannot have more than, with this specific plugin, this specific add-on, I don't know if it's a restriction from the game or if it's just the add-on was done this way, but you cannot have more than 4 morphs affecting a single vertex, which is not the same as saying there's only 4 morphs maximum that you can do, but a single vertex cannot be deformed by more than 4 morphs. And just a forwards, just an information about Milkshape 3D. This is currently one of the problems there is with this specific add-on, is that it's not super compatible with Milkshape 3D. When you export morphs, when you export a mesh with morphs from Blender using this add-on, and you try to open this same mesh in Milkshape, it's not going to import properly. Sometimes it's going to be like the base mesh isn't working. Sometimes it's one of the morphs or all of the morphs are going to be either not imported or imported in a weird way, and I'm still not too sure why this is, because this is only something that happens with Milkshape, not the game. The game just works fine with whatever the add-on is doing, but not Milkshape. There is, however, a workaround, which I'm not sure that I'll be able to show you here, just because like time is of the essence, right? But just know that there is a workaround, and I might show later what that workaround is. It's just that the workaround is a little bit convoluted, because it involves like duplicating the object a bunch of times, and like exporting that into Milkshape, then redo the sort of like the setup that Milkshape usually has going on with the comments and stuff like that, and then export from Milkshape, which sort of like removes the idea of doing everything in Blender, but at least it will be compatible with what other creators are using to edit their meshes. And since sharing is caring and it's part of the spirit of the community, I feel like it's something that is important to say. But yeah, essentially this is the only, right now it's the only thing that doesn't work in between the two programs. Okay, so morphs. For those who don't know what they are, morphs are basically like the thing that makes your mesh change depending on the state that your sim is. So you notice here that if I enable this specific morph, it's going to change the shape of the mesh. So this is the fat morph. So whenever your sim gets fat, it gets this shape instead of the base one. And there's also, you can see that right now there's one for the pregnancy, but it's not doing anything. I'm not too sure why there's this morph when it's not doing anything. Maybe it's something that was imported with the boot. It's definitely possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just delete the preg bot for now. And this one, which doesn't have any name, that sometimes gets put in there, I don't, again, this is something that you might sometimes see in Blender. I'm not too sure why it's there, but it's not necessary, so you can also remove it. And then I'm only going to keep the fat morph for now. And you'll notice that right here something weird is happening, because like the previous one wasn't having the exact, was not changing exactly in the exact same way. But that's okay, we're going to fix that later. Which reminds me that whenever I merged these two parts, I didn't actually merge the vertices. So I'm going to do that now. Select everything, go, no, actually not everything, because there's, no, you know what? Yes, actually select everything, then merge by distance. And again, make sure that the sharp edges is selected. So that way we have sharp edges in here and also in here, because that's something that Maxis did quite a lot, was like duplicating a bunch of them. So there was a little bit of a sharp edge around the cleavage parts. And yeah, so this way you have this, and this part here, like all these vertices that were previously doubled, now they are one and the same, which sort of should, yeah, sort of like corrected whatever weirdness was going on previously, right, with the part morph. But you are noticing that the boots are not having that same treatment, because the morph sort of got destroyed whenever we did what it was that we were doing previously. One thing that I really want to make clear is that morphs and shape keys, they are essentially the same thing. Blender calls them shape keys because, again, Blender is very animation oriented on top of being very modeling and meshing oriented. So it tends to sometimes talk in language that is potentially more understandable for animators, but shape keys and morphs are the same thing. And we know that because in Sims 2, the animations for the faces on Sims Faces, they are not done using bones, which sometimes is the case even for faces with 3D, but they are done through shape keys. And so you have like, actually I can maybe show you very quickly. So, okay, so you have the sim, right? And the animations in Sims 2, they are done using this thing here, which I believe was something that was documented by Polluting previously. But essentially, what moves on a Sim's face is all these sliders here. So for example, when they blink, it's this thing happening. Same thing with the other eye. Then when they puff their cheek, it's this slider. You have like the pinch, which is going to move the eyebrows, the Z corner, which is going to move the corners of the mouth, etc., etc. So shape keys, they are like morphs, they're the same thing, essentially. So you can animate morphs by just telling them to change according to a timeline, which is what Sims 2 does with the animation faces. But yeah, just so you know that they're the same thing. So now what we want to do is sort of copy what this part of the leg is doing and sort of apply that to the boot. The way we do that in Blender is we go into the modifiers, okay, with the boot selected, and we click Add Modifier, and we select the Surface Deform. You might not have this as one of the first options, so you can just type in the name, you tap surface, and you get this one, surface deform, and you click it, and it's going to put this here. You notice that this thing is red. It's telling you that currently the modifier has been applied to the object, but it's not. It's invalid because all the conditions to make this a valid modifier have not been met, and it's because we need to select a target, okay? So the target will be our body mesh. But what I'd like to do is essentially sort of copy whatever the body was doing when we had the entire body going on. And this is when the reference meshes collection is going to help us, because what I'm going to do is go File, Import, GMDC, and I'm going to import the same mesh, the HM Night Out again. And I'm doing this because I want to simplify things, but you could use any reference mesh that you'd like. I'm just going to select this one because it's going to be easier in our case. Import that. And then you can change the name if you want. You can let it like this if you prefer. It's not really important. You can hide it because we don't really actually need them to be there. It just needs to be on the scene. And now what we're going to do is we're going to select the boots. We're going to click the little eyedropper tool, click the body mesh, the body 001, which is the reference that we've chosen, and we're going to click bind. So bind is now this mesh, boots, using this modifier, is looking at this other mesh and looking what it's doing, how it changes. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the body. Even if it's hidden, we can still select it, then go to the data properties, and specifically, and then just turn on the fat morph. Okay, and you notice that when we are doing that, the boots change, and that's because if I turn this on again, the boots are actually deforming according to whatever the reference mesh is doing. Okay, so that's how we are going to add a fat morph to the boots. Is we're going to just use this one reference and then turn this all the way up to 1. Okay, we can just hide it again. And now that we've done that, what we want is we go here on this little arrow and we click apply as shape key. Okay, not apply, because that's going to apply the modifier to the base shape of the mesh, but the second one, apply as shape key. And you notice that the boots go back to how they were previously. And now if we go to data, the morph is here. And if we turn it all the way up to 1, you can see it deform to whatever the resulting shape was. If we go to the body mesh here, we can just double click this, copy the name, then go to boots, double click the name, paste that, and voila, we have a fat morph which is working. And now if we do this and then we activate, it's already activated. So if we do this, you can now see that it's working perfectly. Whereas before, if we just did that, it was clipping, right? But now it's working. So this is a very simple example, so I wanted to sort of bring out another one. So I removed the reference because we don't need it anymore, but you can keep it if you want. I'm just going to import a new reference, and this time around, just so I can show you that it's possible, I am going to essentially import a custom shape that I have been working on, sort of. It's not really like that much work, but sorry, no, it's not an import, it's an append because it's saved inside a blend file, not a GMDC file. So SimStream resources here, and then I'm going to go into this file which I have saved, object, and I am going to select preset AF dress subdivided. So this is a simple mesh that I've extracted from Max's, and I have subdivided it so you can see that there's actually a lot of points now. It's like 7,000 and a few. And this is because the more a reference mesh has points, the more the receiving mesh can compare against all the points that there are and try to replicate that. Even though I didn't go like super hard, like I could have gone way higher with the number of vertices that I was putting, I still did this. So one thing that I'm going to show you is that I have a pregmorph here on this reference, right? Which sort of like follows what the pregmorph from Maxis is doing. And what I want now, I'm going to remove this one. What I want now is do the exact same thing. So I'm going to go add modifier, surface deform, click the eyedropper tool, select my reference, and bind the reference with the target. Sorry, the body mesh with the target, right? This time around, sorry, I am doing this on the body, not the boots, because the boots, they are super low, so they don't need a pregmorph, okay? And I am going to, now that I have binded them, I'm going to go back to my reference, select my pregmorph, enable it, and you can see that it had an effect on the dress that I was working on. Does it make sense for a dress like this to have a preg morph? No. But this is just so you can see how we would do this in Blender. We click body, then we go back to the modifier, which is still here, and we apply it as a shape key. And so yeah, okay, we have this, and now if we go back to here, sorry, I'm going to again copy the name of this one, and then I'm going to paste it like this and activate it, and you can see that now we have that. Going back to solid mode so you can all admire this super cool result. You can say that. Ah, yes, this might be something that interests you. Whenever you switch to edit mode, wherever morph is currently selected is the one that is going to be displayed. So you have the bases, the fat bot, the preg bot, okay? So you select them and they automatically switch to that, which is not the same as in object mode, because in object mode you actually have to change the value here in order for something to happen. Now, this can be reproduced in edit mode as well. If you click this little icon here, it's going to do that. So it goes back to base because right now it's at 0. We can like drop it all the way to 1, okay? Let's say that whatever reference I used doesn't totally match the like radius of the belly that Max's uses. So I actually wanted something a little bit more round. Like I needed it to go even beyond what it already did. Blender lets me do that because I can, here, I can just press 2. And now it's going to automatically sort of like deduce how it would look like if the values that I originally put in there, they were going to go beyond the 100% value, if that makes sense. Okay, so you can exaggerate.
That's really cool.
Yeah, you can exaggerate like the ending result with that. So obviously we wouldn't go to 2, right? Because that just looks weird. But
I don't know what the hell you would use it for, but it's a cool feature.
But you could actually like go to 1.2, for example. So 1.2, it would be maybe like a little bit more close to what Max's had going on. And you might have noticed that whenever I was showing the reference mesh that I did, I have like one here that it's called like EF reduced breast sagginess, because this is something that we have talked about before in the Discord, which is like the breasts of the Max's original mesh is a little bit too much for me, so I actually prefer it to be less saggy. So this is basically what I did. Like I made a EF morph that sort of changes the body to that, but I blended the chest area with the AF chest area, so the change was less extreme, if that makes sense. So that would be one example where you would use a feature like that, because when I say you can put 2 here, of course, so it exaggerates it beyond the original amount. You can also just put like 0.5, and that's now like 50% of whatever was original there, if that makes sense. And it also works in reverse. So if you want to do the reverse of that, you can put the minimum range value at -1, and now it's going to do the reverse of what was there.
That's really cool.
And this, just so you know, is the exact same system as the sliders on the faces of Sims when you are like modifying them. I don't know if you've already like done a custom slider, but if you do one, it works exactly in the same way. Like the idea with sliders in Sims 2 is that you have like the base mesh, and then you have how much it changes at 100%. And then whatever that 100% was, the inverse of that, the opposite, which goes in the opposite direction in the slider, it does whatever was the 100% and it puts it at minus 100%, and so it goes the other way. So same system. Also, I don't necessarily have a lot of time to go in depth with this, but you can really go, like, let's say you wanted to keep only a small part of this mesh to be whatever was on the original, like, let's say you didn't want the whole base of the skirt to have any sort of like change, right? You only wanted to change this part. You can select all those vertices and then go vertex, blend from shape, and you uncheck this one, and there you go. It's now the exact same thing. If I could just do that. Oh yeah, right. I just completely did. Sorry. 1 second. Okay, so this one should be 1, this one should be 0. Okay. And now, no, sorry, this one should be -1. And if I go like this, if I don't want anything to happen to the skirt, I just do vertex, blend from shape, and now doesn't matter whatever value I have in there, this part here doesn't change. You can also do a blend of that. So if I wanted the skirt to only change at like 50% of whatever was in there, vertex blend mode, instead of the 1, I put 0.5, and now it's a blend in between the two. So you can really go far with this if you want. You can even like do a vertex group and like decide exactly how much of the blending should go where. So yeah, you can really go deep with this feature. But anyway, now we have a pregnancy mesh. Just so we are on the same page also, make sure that whenever if you do this thing where you go beyond the 100% value, like I am doing here, where I'm going to put 1.1 just for the example, make sure that you still end up having this number, like the maximum be 1, because that's what the GMDC add-on is going to use. In order to make a new shape that makes this 1.1 the default 100%, you go here and click New Combined. Now you remove this one, and now the 100% of this new one is the 1.1 from before. And so this is only when once we are sort of like done with that part and we can sort of be sure of what we were doing. Once we are sure that that's how much we wanted to change, now we just convert it into this, and we put and you make it go from 0 to 1. So that way in here. So that way the Blender add-on knows what to do with this. Because otherwise it's going to just stay at that 100 threshold and not do anything beyond that. A cool thing about Blender is that you can also like preview what a fat sim which is pregnant would look like, because again this is what the game is doing inside its engine. It's mixing the fat morph with the pregnancy morph, and that's how a pregnant fat sim would look like. And the pregnancy morph, if you want to see the second trimester thing, you just put 0.5 and there. That's how it looks at the second trimester. The next part is bone assignments. We're not going to, again, not going to go super deep with this one because this can be quite complicated, but just so you have a very basic understanding of that. If we click the boots and then go into weight paint mode, which is the mode where we edit weights, which is bone assignments, you can click here, and if you select on the vertex groups tab, if you expand it, you can see that there are multiple bones. So you have like 46, 45, 42, etc., and etc. So obviously these don't make any sense because the bones inside the game, they have names. Here they only have numbers. So how do we tell which ones are which? Well, we need to import a skeleton for that. The way we do this is we select all the meshes, like the objects we want to assign the skeleton to. And we also need to make sure we are selecting the collection in which these objects are living in. So in my case, it's this one. But if you didn't have any sub-collection, the one you would select is the scene collection, right? But since mine are inside this one, and I want the skeleton to be imported in here, I need to select this. This is important because I think this is something that the original developer didn't catch when they debugged the add-on. But if you don't select a collection, sometimes the skeleton doesn't know where to go, and so it is not going to import. So you need to select a collection in order for the skeleton to know where it goes and be imported correctly. So you select the objects you want to assign the skeleton to, the collection where it goes, and then go File, Import, GMDC. And once you are here, you want to select a different mode. By default, it's Geometry, which is when you want to import a mesh. And you can also now select Skeleton. The skeleton is going to look for a 5CR type of file. 5CR is the exportation file format of Cress resources inside the game. So you select this one, 5CR, import GMDC, sims to GMDC, and it's going to say done, and it's going to import what is called an armature. Again, just different words to say the same thing, but this is a skeleton. And now you notice if you go back to the body that all the bones now have correct names. So you have our foot, our calf, our thigh, our toe, etc., etc. Okay? And if you go back to the boots, same thing. Now they have all names. So this is pretty interesting to have, because if I go again back to weight paint mode, now I know what this is, what this is, what this is. And a cool thing that you can do, which is also possible in Milkshape, if you select the armature, but it needs to be the armature, and then you go to click object mode here, you have less options, but you have a new option which is called pose mode. In pose mode, you can select any of the bones and simply rotate them in order to make the sim strike a pose. And this is sort of non-destructive, meaning if you sort of like do, for example, something like this, okay? Let's say I wanted to have this going on, or whatever else, okay? This is just a pose. If you want the sim to obviously not be exported with this pose, just having the normal T-pose that it often has, you would still select armature, then select the data properties, which you might have noticed has changed icons because we are no longer on a mesh type of object. We are in a armature type of object. So if you go into the data properties, currently it's in pose position. You can click rest position and it's going to go back to the default T-pose. And this way you can sort of like switch in between the two if you are like doing some of the bone assignments, and then quickly switch back to pose mode to see whatever you did, if it's helping or if it's not helping, and sort of go back and forth like this. Another quick thing that we're going to do is simply, I'm going to import back again the original mesh. It's saying, yeah, sorry. So here, good example of like what I just did. I tried to import the GMDC, but it's still in skeleton mode. So I need to switch back to geometry, select the GMDC, and now it's going here. And now the way that we're going to do this is a little bit, not going to say complicated because it's not complicated, but it's just, I find that this way is a little bit better and less complicated, less fiddly. But you're going to select these two objects, right? Like usual, and you're going to merge them using Control J. So you might be going, but actually no, I don't want them to be in the same group because I want them to be separated. That's okay. The only thing that I suggest you do whenever you do this type of thing is you make sure that you have two different materials for each part of the mesh that you want to re-separate later. The reason why I'm going to show a little bit, well, later, a little bit later. So you select the now merged mesh, you go into modifiers. You notice that now it has an armature modifier. This is how it's linking the mesh to the armature, so you shouldn't delete it. If you delete it, it's okay, because if I do this, I can still like recreate a new one and then select the armature object as being the armature, okay? But you can just leave it there and not touch it whatsoever. And then what the modifier that you want to add, you click add modifier search, is the data transfer modifier. Again, if you don't see it, just search up the name data transfer. You can put it above the armature because we are going to apply this one. And we are going to select a source, which is our original mesh. And we are going to select this one, vertex data, vertex groups, and the mapping method is going to be nearest face interpolated. All these mapping modes can be interesting, and you should definitely try to play around and see what the results are going to be. If you have perfectly identical objects and you just want to transfer vertex groups from one to the other, you can just use topology, because topology is going to base itself upon the topology of the geometry. And since the objects would be exactly the same, the result would be perfectly 100% identical to whatever the source had. You can also like do nearest vertex. Nearest vertex isn't very good when objects are not identical, but it can still sometimes be useful. But most times what you would want to use is the nearest face interpolated. Then expand the vertex group here. You can see that the layer selection is all layers. Yeah, sorry. I actually forgot about that. Sorry. We need to re-import another skeleton for this mesh here, because notice that this one doesn't have the bones renamed, because I imported the armature before I imported this one. So what I need to do is select this one, select its collection, file import, GMDC, Cress, skeleton mode, import, and now the bones are renamed correctly. I can now delete this armature, which I no longer need, click the body here, and now go back to my original one, my shoe swap one, go to modifiers, select this one, nearest face interpolated, all layers, and by name. So it's going to use the names that are here to transfer them to here, which also have the same. And if your base mesh didn't have any, like let's say I didn't have any groups, okay? If I don't have any groups, what you want to do is you want to click this little button here, generate data layers, and that's going to generate all the groups directly. For now, they are still empty, but they have been generated. Once we've done that, we can apply the modifier, and that's going to transfer the vertex group data from this mesh to this one. And now if I go back to weight paint mode and select any of the vertex groups, you can see that they have data. They have information about how the mesh should deform. So again, this wasn't necessarily necessary for this mesh because it was already weighted, but I felt like that was still a good information to give. So yeah. And for those that are not necessarily familiar with vertex groups and weights and bone assignments, in Blender, unlike in Milkshape, you cannot like see the results of everything that is being assigned to the mesh. It goes group by group. So everything that is red is 100% assigned to that group, to that bone group. Anything that is blue is 0% assigned to that group. The black stuff is just, it doesn't have information about those vertices. So it's like it was 0, but technically it's just no information at all. Oops, sorry. So yeah, and of course, everything that is in between 1 and 0, between 100% and 0 would be like the smooth translation in between the two values. So this part here is 50% assigned to this bone. And that's essentially how animations work in this, not just in The Sims, in any 3D game for that matter. So now if I try to do something with, I need to go back to pose mode, pose position, sorry. You can see that the pose position is still the same, is not broken, it's still like working as it should. Now, how do we separate the objects again? So for that, we need to select the mesh, go to edit mode, select everything, then press P. This is the separate short key, and we're going to use by material. You can use by selection, which would involve going in and selecting the vertices only related to the boot, which would be fine. But in this case, we already had a material different for all the parts. So if we just do that, now you can see that this one and this one are separated again. So in this case, it's renamed the boot's just body, so we don't want that. And this one is the body mesh. So there you go. Just a FYI, just like Morphs, no more than 4 bones per vertex are allowed. And what this means is once your weights are finished, or almost finished, minus like in-game testing or stuff like that, you need to limit the amount of bones, because oftentimes when you transfer from one mesh to another, it's going to sort of not respect this restriction. So the way you do that is you go to edit mode, select everything, then go to weight paint mode. You can activate like the vertices selection using this little toggle, and then go weights and limit total. And you can leave the 4 in there, okay? Because that's the default value, and that's the value we want for our Sims 2 mesh. Notice that when I do this, I get this information here saying that 6 vertex weights were limited, meaning that there were 6 vertex that had more than 4 bones on the entirety of the groups. I redo the exact same thing for the shoe. So edit mode, select all, weight paint mode, and weights limit total. In this case, it didn't do anything because there were no vertex with more than 4. And final thing about weights, for Milkshape 3D compatibility, you need to also clean the values that are below this amount. So this is very specific to exactly what I was talking about previously, where the Milkshape 3D doesn't quite get what is happening when the mesh comes from Blender, because the two programs do things a little bit differently. And so sometimes when you, when you export from Blender without cleaning the values, it will import the weights improperly inside Milkshape 3D, which you don't necessarily want, of course. So the way you clean the values is you go weights, clean, you select subsets, you select all groups here, and then the limit is just 0.0, and you just add a 1 at the end. It's not going to tell you anything, but if you've pressed enter, it's done. You can be sure of that. And then you just do the exact same thing on the other group, weights, clean, and you notice that some things disappeared there. And yeah, so this is really just a limitation on Milkshape's part, because again, the game isn't limited in that way, but Milkshape is. Whatever value that is beneath this threshold, Milkshape doesn't understand, and this is because Blender talks in zeros and ones. It goes from a 0 to a 1, 1 being 100%, but Milkshape works in percentages, where a 0 is a 0%, a 1 is a 100%, and it doesn't understand values that have like 2 zeros, like so 0, 001, it doesn't understand. So by doing this thing that we just did, what we are saying is any value that is below 0.1%, you remove. And that makes Milkshape understand the mesh again. Okay, so last part, this one should be pretty straightforward, but just exporting everything from Blender. So unlike Milkshape 3D, Blender doesn't automatically create a boundary mesh for the mesh, automatically. So we need to do this. How do we create a boundary mesh? Well, first, what's a boundary mesh? A boundary mesh is the object that the game is using to determine where you can click when you interact with the mesh. So when Sims move their arms, there's a boundary mesh that is being animated invisibly by the game, and it lets you, as the player, be able to click the mesh as it animates. So this is important, because if your mesh doesn't have boundary mesh, first, it can't work as an animated mesh, because boundary meshes that don't have boundaries can't be animated. I don't really know the technical reason, but that's what seems to be the case. And most importantly, if your mesh doesn't have a boundary, then you can't click on the mesh at all using your mouse. So how do we create a boundary mesh? Well, it's pretty simple. You select all the groups of your mesh. You go Shift D to duplicate, okay? Then you can press escape. So that created a duplicate of the object. And now you just do a Control G, sorry. And this new copy of your mesh, which is here, you can rename it b_mesh. And technically you don't have to rename it this, but you're going to see why we've renamed it this way. And now that we have a boundary mesh, we can just select these two groups, go File, Export, GMDC, and this is the window where we can export our mesh. So this part is sort of important, so I'm going to select this folder to put my mesh in. So we want to export only selected objects because we have a whole bunch of other stuff going on and we only want these two ones to be exported, okay? Then we apply rotation and scale. This is a little bit complicated to explain, but essentially this doesn't change anything. You just want to make sure that it's there because it's useful. Then you absolutely need to check rigging data because this is the information about all the vertex groups and the bone assignments and stuff like that. Tangents you also want to check because if you don't check this, you are going to get neck seams here, okay? I've had problems with this before and was trying desperately to like make the normals be exactly the same as the neck, and I was not being able to do this. It's because I was not checking this option whenever I export it. So tangents you need to check for any kind of mesh. I'd assume because it also says that it's required for bump mapping. So you get there. Now morphs, you only want to select this one, difference in vertices coordinates only, because there's another option, but Blender doesn't, how do you say this? Like, unlike milkshape, this is actually a limitation of Blender. Blender doesn't let you do different normals for your morph. So the only way you can calculate the difference with the morphs is through the coordinates of the vertices. So you select this one, and then you select boundary geometry. And here's why we renamed the mesh bmesh, is because by default, this is the name that the add-on is going to use as a reference. So we don't need to change this. However, the bone weight threshold, I don't know why this option exists because every single time I always use the exact same amount, which I input 0, and it automatically transfers to the minimum value that it can accept, which is 0.05, and I just leave it at that. If you leave it at any other value, it's going to remove parts of the boundary mesh, which we don't want. So I don't know what this option is there, but just put 0. That puts automatically the minimum value, and that's there. The SG resource is the scenegraph resource, so it's the name of the resource in SimPE, basically. I uncheck this personally, but you can keep it on. And this is because I don't use the TS locator suffix, because that's not actually required. And I had this before, but I don't seem to have it any longer. I'm just going to quickly open SimPE, so that way I can know the name of the resource. There we go. Now I'm going to open the mesh package, which is the one that we're going to replace the mesh in. I'm going to select the GMDC there. I'm going to copy the name, and I'm going to paste it in here. And there you go. So now, inside this one, I can name it whatever. This is not really important. Export GMDC, and it's done. If for some reason you get an error, in Windows, you can go into Window, and there would be an option somewhere here that says toggle console window. You click that option, and it's going to open the console of Blender. In Linux, if you are in Linux, you need to change your shortcuts of Blender, edit application, and you need to, in advance, run in terminal. You need to open the application with the terminal turned on. This is the reason why I'm missing the option, because on Linux it's a little bit different. But essentially, we would have the exact same thing, where you have a full log of whatever the add-on did. So you can see that Sims2 GMDC exporter, it's going to export it here. This is all the options that we have checked. It's going to do all of this, assign all this type of data, and then if you have an error, it's going to tell you what that error is. And thankfully, this add-on is very precise in the way that it has to detect whatever was going on. So sometimes it's going to tell you like there are more than 4 bones assigned to one of the vertex or one of your morphs, or I don't know this vertex group. You have a vertex group that doesn't belong to a Sims2 skeleton or something like that. So it's actually pretty useful to go see what the console is saying. So if you have an error, you can determine what it is. And then in my case, I didn't have any errors, so I can just now minimize Blender. And I can simply import my mesh. The way that I would do this is, for those that don't know, you right-click the GMDC resource, click Replace. And sorry if my Explorer is a little bit weird. I'm using Wine on Linux to make Simpy run. But in the little input here, you have the file formats that Simpy is going to look for whenever it's going to select the GMDC file. If I travel to the folder where I have put my mesh, which is this one, new mesh, you notice that there's nothing. But actually, yes, there is something. It's a GMDC file. Well, that's because SimPE is looking for a 5GD file or a SimPE file, and the GMDC add-on is exporting as GMDC. All those files are the same. SimPE, 5GD, GMDC, it's the same thing. The extension changes, but the information inside the file is the same. So what you can do is just click this one. You click the all files, and now it's going to show you the file that you want. You select that. It's going to go like this, right? You save. And now we can do a quick preview. You can already tell that there's a boots in there. You can click preview here, and you can see that we have a mesh with boots. I can never remember the shortcuts to, I think it's like this, yes. So we have boots, so they're in there. And we should go into groups, into model. We have a fat morph and a preg morph. Awesome. So we're going to close SimPE. So this is the part that I'm saying right now, and we're going to launch the game. Okay, so we're in there. Notice how I like to name my neighborhoods. They're very original, very originally named.
That's pretty much what I name my neighborhoods too, so...
Okay.
I have Test Hood, I have Test Wine, I have Test Hood Greens.
That was a quick game launch. Is it always this fast on Linux? It's even, normally it's even faster because I don't have anything going on with this version of the game, because I don't have, like, this is a test folder. I don't have any custom content apart from the things that I'm testing or stuff like that. But even with my custom content, I have noticed a big performance boost in terms of like loading times. Like I think I might have like cut down like maybe 5 minutes or something like that when compared to Windows, which is quite a lot, quite impressive. So, okay, I have this sim, and I am going to go into this one, body outfits, and it's a little bit deep inside the catalog because I used Julie G's package, so it kept like the sorting index from that item, which was made a few years back, and now I have the mesh, and there you go. So you notice that whenever we look at the boots in this direction, we can see whatever we did here with the front side parts. It's working correctly. I can go here and put the activate the fat morph. Oh, that's not normal.
Whoa, that is.
No, see, yes, it's normal. It's my skin actually. It's my skin because I have a custom skin which I have still not made a fat morph for. But yeah. That's normal. I forgot about that. So yeah, so you have the fat morph here. And then if I try to do a few things with her, you can see that the boots are working well too. Capricorn. No, that's not the one. Sagittarius.
Gemini.
Sagittarius. There we go. And if I exit this family and I go into a lot, I can also show you the pregmorph. Do not mind the name of this household. Again, I was not very inspired. So, okay, this one. So again, you can see that here. It's doing fine. It's not looking weird or anything. And then might not work. Oh yeah, it's working.
There it is.
Okay. There we go. Okay, so there she is. She is pregnant. She has the little belly and everything. And it can even like change her fitness. And there we go.
That's when it blends fat and pregnancy.
Yes, that's when it does that. So yeah, I think that's
another thing that was really cool with Blender, because like obviously in Milkshape you can't preview the what the preg morph looks like on the fat morph. So it's really cool to be able to see that.
I really like the way it's one of the reasons why I tend to want to keep everything in Blender is because since it is inside the program, then you can do all these things and like preview at every stage whatever is happening the mesh, which is not necessarily something that happens when you use automatic tools like the ones that already exist. I know some people like to do things by hand, and this is sort of like that, but at the same time, it's still Blender doing some of the work for me. I'm just like adjusting, like, okay, this part is maybe a bit too extreme, so I'm going to like reblend that with the original, and then once I'm sort of like okay with whatever I have going on, I apply, and then I tweak the thing a little bit further. And the fact you can go from like seeing the mesh, how it looks at any stage, sort of also like lets you like, if I had the time, like right now, I feel like these vertices, they're a little bit wonky because it's not perfect. Like the automation that Blender does is not perfect. So I would actually like go in there and like try to make this parts a little bit less wonky, right? I would like straighten them, which is something you can do with LoopTools here, which is the add-on I was talking about. So if I wanted to do a completely straight, I would go G-stretch, but sorry, but like only align them on the y-axis, right? Because that allows me to have something that is aligned in that direction. Same thing with like, for example, this. You notice that there's a little bit of a dump. It goes a little bit above, then it goes a little bit downwards again. I would like select this and go flatten and flatten it in the Z-axis. It's all very minimal, right? But sometimes you get meshes where it's very extreme, and so you kind of want to like select them and go, oh, okay, so I'm going to actually straighten them, which if you look all around doesn't really change the shape a whole much, but you just know that the vertices are now like really aligned. And so that might be helpful for other types of modifications later down the line. So it's the reason why I really recommend LoopTools, because it's really like useful. Same thing with like this angle. Sometimes it's again a little bit wonky. So something I like to do is like select all that edge and then go relax, which is trying to like, you know, you notice how it's trying to make it a little bit more roundish. And it's definitely something that you need to tweak. You can't just like go by what Blender is like giving you, because sometimes it's a little bit too much and you are actually removing some of the information. But like this part here, like this is too wonky. So like flatten to me makes more sense. Or I could just go like this part here and do a relax. So yeah, you can really tweak it like that and at the same time still preview what it's going to, what it does when compared to the original. Like maybe this part here would make more sense if it wasn't so like I'm going to be able to do this. Yep. Like if it was less skin tight, but then you also have to watch out for the fat morph, because once the two are combined, maybe the result isn't as good as you would expect. So it's definitely something that you need to like control a bit. Sometimes when you transfer from a reference mesh, you get like vertices, I don't know, like here or here for the pregnancy morph that get affected, and you actually don't want them to be affected. So you can remove that as well with the option that I showed you, like the vertex blend from shape. So it's really like, it's sort of a mix between doing it all fully automatic and doing it manually, which I like. Okay, so yeah, we have like the final results. Yippee! And that's all, folks. Thank you for joining. If you have questions, you can drop them in the chat. I can like stay for a little bit and answer them. If you have questions down the line of some things that you thought that you understood, but turns out you didn't necessarily, you can reach out to me through Discord, preferably, because that's where I'm the most active. If you need help, any help, I can sort of try and help you with whatever problem you have. And yeah, I hope you like these 2 parts, very long workshops, and that it opened a bit of a perspective.